Hello, and welcome to the 90s Week by Week, where we are going through each and every week in the 90s in chronological order. I'm your host, Brandon, coming at you from Grubby's Private Bar. Each episode, we bring on a different guest to go through the pop culture and events of the week we're taking a look at. On this episode, we'll be taking a look at the week of March 11th through the 17th in the year 1990. With me today is Josh Pruitt. How you doing today, Josh?
Good. Glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you here, man. I'm really excited to have you here. Do you know what you might have been doing on any day or night in 1990? How old were you?
5th grade.
5th grade?
Lots going on.
Yeah?
Not really, no. Kind of boring. I just moved the summer of 89. I had to confer with my dad yesterday and get some dates because being that young, I forgot. So
Yeah.
Dad worked Caterpillar when I was young in Peoria.
Mm-hmm.
So he had the big layoff. So he was figuring out what he was going to do. He went to Lincoln Christian College. Became a minister. Summer of 89, we moved. So, 9 months. I've been in a new place for 9 months. Another small town. Dad's first church. So all new people, new surroundings. I'd say I was probably riding my bike. That's what I did a lot of. Out venturing around, checking stuff out.
In town or out of town?
In town, but it was tiny. I moved from a tiny town called Goofy Ridge, believe it or not, to a tiny town called Bone Gap. So 200, 300 people maybe out in the middle of, nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
But
Up around Peoria?
Goofy Ridge, yeah, it was just south of Peoria. Bone Gap was west of Princeton, Illinois.
Okay.
So, we'd go to like Evansville would be our place where we go shopping or stuff like that. But
And that's where you were in 1990?
That's where I was in 1990. We've been there for about 9 months. Dad's first church.
Was it an easy transition for you, or did you struggle a little bit?
It was, being that young. I mean, back then, 5th grade, it's not 5th, 6th grade. The school I went to was nice. I mean, I got along with the people. A lot of the people I'd hang out with would go to our church anyway. So, people I would see on the weekend anyway and stuff like that. But, yeah, it was a nice little community, quiet.
All right, man. Well, let's take a look at music, shall we?
Okay.
All right. Every day between March the 11th through the 17th, the top song was Escapade by Janet Jackson. And the top 10 for this week were number 10, Come On and Get My Love by D-Mob, introducing Kathy Dennis. Number 9, Just a Friend by Biz Markie. Number 8, I Wish It Would Rain Down by Phil Collins. Number 7 was No More Lies by Michelet. Number 6, I Go to Extremes, Billy Joel. Number 5, Price of Love by Bad English. Number 4 was Love Will Lead You Back by Taylor Dayne. Number 3 was Rome by the B-52s. Number 2 was Black Velvet by Alana Miles. And number 1 was Escapade by Janet Jackson. The top rap song this week was The Humpty Dance by the Digital Underground. And the top country song was Hard Rock Bottom of Your Heart by Randy Travis. Notable releases in music this week included, on March the 12th, Without You was released as a single by Motley Crue. On March 14th, the album The Day the Laughter Died by Andrew Dice Clay was released. And also on March the 14th, Leader of the Band by Sam Kinison was released. Okay, so 3 songs make their debut on the top 10 this week. I Wish It Would Rain Down by Phil Collins, Just a Friend by Biz Markie, and Come On and Get My Love by D-Mob, introducing Kathy Dennis. Do you know all of them?
I do now. I wouldn't have at the time.
Which ones would you have known before you looked into it?
What was the first one?
Wish It Would Rain Down by Phil Collins.
I think I might remember that one because I always rode the bus. Anytime, until I got in high school, I was always on the bus. So it was either, the oldies station or country music. It was one or the other. So.
Well, Phil Collins had a huge presence in early '92. Biz Markie, were you familiar with that back then? He says he's just a friend.
No. Definitely know now, but no, I don't recall that from back then.
I love that song.
I don't think many people at the church were listening to him, so that was...
Yeah, that's probably true. Were you listening to, Christian artists?
I didn't really remember much of music back from then. It wasn't something I'd sit and listen to the radio or anything that young. That wasn't until, probably 8th grade when I started listening to music. I had a cassette player, my little Walkman with my headphones.
Yeah.
But before that, I don't...
Well, my previous guest, being the same age as you, said pretty much the same thing. In 5th grade, you're not really focusing on music or Well, now that you've listened to all three of them, if you have to listen to one on repeat the whole way home today, which one are you listening to?
Oh, probably the Bismarcky. But I don't think I'd make it. It's an hour drive. I don't think I'd make it. It'd keep me awake. But
You learn the lyrics. The Humpty Dance finally dethrones Expression as the top rap and hip-hop song on the charts this week. Have you listened to that since? The Humpty Dance, you familiar with it?
it's Digital Underground, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I have.
Are you a fan of it? Do you like that song?
I do. It's different. I think I'm not sure that. I think that album was Sex Packets.
Maybe.
I'm not sure. You might have to look that
I
up,
will.
see if I was right. I don't know where that came from, but I know that was one of their popular albums.
Yeah.
Now, yet again, still, I wouldn't remember that from when I was in 5th grade.
Just since.
Yeah. I remember the video. That's when he had the big fake nose.
Yeah, and I was going to say that's the line I remember. My nose is long like a pickle.
Yeah.
He says.
Yeah, well, we were a small town, so we didn't. A lot of people would have had no idea what that stuff is if they, were to hear it. What is this blasphemous music? What?
It blows my mind thinking back to these times and figuring out how music made its rounds and got to people, especially small towns like that.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Dice Clay and Sam Kinison both released an album this week. Familiar with both of them?
Yes.
Either of them? If you're going to the store to buy one, which is it, Sam Kinison or Andrew Dice Clay?
Oh. That's tough.
Okay.
Probably Kinnison. I think they're both hilarious. They're both raunchy, but I'd probably say Sam.
Very different styles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Kinnison, I think, was kind of like acclimated with the heavy metal hairband. I don't know why I think that. Maybe it's the Wild Thing video.
I just remember him screaming. He gets so animated about stuff and just the energy of that guy.
Yeah. He was a former preacher.
Really?
Yeah.
Did not know that.
I don't know what denomination or anything. I just know that he was a preacher turned because that was always like the big shocking fact about him because he was so vulgar.
I'm going to guess Southern Baptist.
Probably not. With this fire Pentecostal, right? You said you weren't really like big into music in 1990, understandable for your age. But if you were you buying cassettes or CDs?
Cassettes.
Still, yeah, I would have definitely been cassettes.
I remember buying my first cassette at my grandma's house.
Yeah?
I do.
How old?
It would have been right around this time, maybe a little before. I'd have to look it up because, like I said, I had to get with my dad on dates because I forget stuff.
What was it?
Crisscross.
Nice.
Kid you not, that was my first cassette.
Cassette or cassette single?
It was the whole album.
Nice.
It was I Missed the Bus, all of it. Whole album. And I would play that, and I think at one time Granny was like, "What are you listening to?" She didn't understand it.
Dude, that holds up. That song, like Jump, holds up.
Mm-hmm.
I can listen to it today.
With their backwards pants and their backwards jerseys. And
Yep. I have an Uber 1990s playlist for when I'm out doing Uber, and Jump's on there. Like you want people to get hyped in your back seat, put on Crisscross, and make them jump. I remember the first two cassettes I bought too, which would have been around this time, and they were Metallica's "And Justice for All" and Motley Crue's "Dr. Feelgood." Bought them at the same time.
nice. You still have them?
I don't.
Oh.
I had a drawer full of all my cassettes and cassette singles back at my dad's, like in an old dresser that was used more for storage than clothes, and I think he got rid of them. That's my fault for not getting them out of there. But yeah, I was big on the cassette single thing. Where did your grandma live?
Chester, Illinois.
What part of Illinois is that?
By Carbondale.
South.
Yeah. I'd go stay with her, and they had a real nice community pool, so she'd get me a season pass so I could go, and she got me swimming lessons, and so I go stay with her, and we'd take the train to St. Louis.
Oh wow!
Watch Cubs and Cardinals because Granny was a big Chicago fan. So was her boyfriend Charlie, and then my uncle Randy was the only one that was a Cardinals fan.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't watch sports, so I was a Cardinals fan because Randy was always outnumbered. You go watch Ozzie Smith come out and do his backflip, and a little kid, that's exciting when you're little.
That's awesome.
Never seen anything like that, and you're just like, what is this place? It's like walking to the Coliseum. You don't know what. But yeah, that was always our thing. We'd go to St. Louis to watch Cardinals and Cubs.
Where would you have bought that cassette at? Like,
it would have been.
Was it a store, like a mall store?
I wouldn't know. Yeah, it would have been in a mall. I'm not sure if we would have went to Carbondale. That's probably where the mall would have been. Yeah, me and my Uncle Randy would take me out. That was some of the first rated R movies I get to see. Because Uncle Randy'd take me out. He don't care if True Lies is rated R. He's taking me to the theater to watch it. Mom and Dad will find out about it later.
Yeah.
So we actually went and watched it twice.
Did you?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, he took me twice. Had my candy cigarettes that he bought me, and fun times down there. Granny'd always cook for me, and it was neat down there.
So you probably didn't attend any concerts around this time if you had kind of a strict upbringing as far as music goes, you're saying?
No, I don't recall any concerts around there anywhere. It was mostly weekends. It's hanging out with people in the church and going to people's houses to eat, which I always enjoyed. We always had the potlucks and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. That's fun for a little chubby kid.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, how about we jump to movies?
Okay.
All right. Every day between March the 11th through the 17th, The Hunt for Red October was the top movie. And the top 5 movies for this week were number 5, Blue Steel, number 4, House Party, number 3, Lord of the Flies, number 2, Joe versus the Volcano, and number 1, The Hunt for Red October. All right, have you seen House Party?
I have.
Like recently or back then?
Not back then.
About Lord of the Flies, you ever seen that?
I don't remember seeing that, I don't think.
It's really intense. Mm-hmm. So it was a really popular book, I think, for many years, maybe even decades. But it's like a group of kids, their plane crashes or their boat wrecks on an island, and they're left to fend for themselves, and they end up becoming real primal, and almost animalistic. Like, I don't know, it becomes like factions and stuff. So it's super intense. If you'd been stranded on an island with your peers in 1990 with little hope of ever being found or rescued, what role would you have played in the new society? Did you have a skill set in the 5th grade?
Oh, no, none. I don't know.
You're not gonna cook food, or
they'd probably have me cleaning, picking up stuff. I'd be the grunt. I don't know. I wouldn't be as chubby anymore because they'd probably work me to death. I don't know. There
is a kid in there called Piggy. He's like chubby, and he does get like messed with pretty bad. He's a central character to the.
I might have to go back and watch that.
You probably it's really good. As far as classic literature goes, you know what I mean? There's a lot of undertones going on and stuff. And I won't tell you how it ends, in case you do watch it. But it is good. But no, I'm with you, man. Like, I'm screwed. If I'm on an island with a bunch of kids, like, I'm just going to be entertainment. They're going to, because I've got no use, no purpose in 1990.
Me either.
I'm like, I can't build tents. Or maybe they'll have me like the night watch guy, but I'm probably not going to be good at that because I got ADHD, so I'm not even going to be able to pay attention.
I'm a 10 to the fire. I think that's probably I've always liked playing with fires and building fires, so I think that probably would have been my role. I'm in charge of the fire pit.
Okay. I would have set the whole damn island on fire on accident. I was a mess. Did you play with toys in 1990?
Yeah, I've always been into cars.
Mm-hmm.
I still collect them. Not as much as I used to, but
like Matchbox or model?
Yeah, Hot Wheels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I built a few models that I recall, but no, it's always been cars. I mean, I had G.I. Joes a little bit, not like you did, but lots of cars.
Have you ever seen Blue Steel?
Don't know.
I don't think probably anybody I know has.
Who's in it?
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
She's a cop, and like her first day on the job, she ends up shooting a guy that is robbing a convenience store. The guy's gun drops, though, and one of the people that's laying on the floor, like a patron, like grabs the guy's gun. So there's no gun on the scene, so because there's no cameras in 1990. There weren't cameras everywhere like there is now. So then she gets under investigation because she shot the guy, says he pointed a gun at her, but there's no gun on the scene. So they're questioning her. I watched it, it isn't the worst movie I've ever seen. I wouldn't watch it again. So I don't remember it at all. I just wonder if anybody else out there has any recollection of it at all. All right, man. How about we take a look at television?
Okay.
The top 10 in television this week was number 10, In the Heat of the Night, titled An Angry Woman. Number 9 was Who's the Boss, titled Operation Mona. There was a tie at number 7 with Gunsmoke, The Last Apache, a television movie, and The Wonder Years, titled Night Out. Number 6 was A Different World with the title 21 Candles. Number 5 was 50 Minutes. Number 4 was The Cosby Show with the title Theo's Dirty Laundry. Number 3 was Roseanne, which was a rerun. Number 2 was America's Funniest Home Videos. And number 1 was Cheers, with the title Bar Wars 3, The Return of Tecumseh. This week's issue of TV Guide featured the cast of L.A. Law on the cover with the words, America's Top Attorneys Tell, what we'd like to see on L.A. Law. In the top center was a picture of Bob Newhart with the words, Dean of Sitcoms picks his comedy all-stars to the right, and in the top right corner it said, Jane Pauley, My Life After Today, with the portrait of her above it. Rob Lowe hosted Saturday Night Live this week, and the musical guest was the Pogues. There were many references to Rob Lowe's sex tape scandal, including on Church Chat with Church Lady, where he was a guest. The Simpsons this week was titled Life on the Fast Lane. When Homer forgets Marge's birthday, he rushes out to buy her a last-minute gift, which is a bowling ball with his name on it. Out of spite, Marge starts going to the bowling alley by herself to use the ball Homer had intended to keep for himself, as he anticipated her rejecting it. An accomplished bowler takes notice of her, and Marge begins toying with the notion of starting a relationship with him outside of her marriage. The March 12th episode of Arsenio Hall featured Gloria Steinem and Sweet Honey in the Rock. On March 13th, Don Cornelius, Eric Idle, and Miss USA, Carol Gist were all on. Then on March 15th, Jamie Lee Curtis and Charles Fleischer were guests, with Soul to Soul as a musical guest. And on March 16th, Moon Unit and Dweezil Zappa were on Arsenio Hall. Quantum Leap this week was titled Pool Hall Blues, and in it, Sam leaps into the body of a renowned pool shark whose eyes are failing him, but must accept the challenge of a younger pool shark in order to help his granddaughter keep her club. The Offspring was the title of this week's episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. In it, Data surprises the crew of the Starship Enterprise by announcing he has created an android in his likeness. Referring to it as his offspring, he gives it the name Lal and begins a parental relationship with her. When Picard's superiors find out, they demand he turn Lal over to them. As Picard chooses to take a stand against their orders, Lal begins permanently shutting down. On Days of Our Lives this week, Jack fires Jennifer after he finds out she went to Harper and asked him to leave Jack alone. Emilio asks Jennifer to marry him, and Joe tries to convince Jack to go after her. Isabella remembers being with Marina the day she died, and Patch hires Sheila to take care of Stephanie. Did you watch much television in 1990?
Yeah.
Of like the top 5 or top 10, were any of those like shows that you watched regularly or very often?
Like Family Time, I was sure America's Funniest Home Videos. I remember watching The Cosbys, The Wonder Years, always watched it. Who's the Boss? Tony Danza. I remember In the Heat of the Night, wouldn't have watched it. Gunsmoke, Dad probably would have watched that.
I would not have thought Who's the Boss was still going on in 1990. I would have thought it was over by now. But that's a new episode. I can't find them. They're not on any streaming service or YouTube, because I go back, and I try to watch all of these for the week I'm doing. Can't find any Who's the Boss. Wonder Years is very popular among my guests. Almost all of my guests have said that was one of their favorite shows.
It was good. It was really
1990.
good.
On Saturday Night Live this week, there was a skit where they advertised a collection of Irish songs in honor of St. Patrick's Day, which happened this week on March 17th. Conan O'Brien, you're familiar with Conan O'Brien? Mm-hmm. Conan O'Brien was in the skit. I knew he'd been a writer for SNL, but I didn't know when or that he'd ever made an appearance. Would you have been wearing green in 1990 on St. Patrick's Day?
No.
No?
We might have. I really don't know.
It's weird that I have a distinct memory of like people pinching the hell out of you if you didn't. Like brutally.
I do remember that. Maybe I was traumatized by it. Maybe I got pinched a lot because I didn't have green, so I very well could have had green on.
Yeah, one bad experience and you learn your lesson. Mm-hmm. I remember specifically a kid that was like way big for our grade got off on it. Anybody didn't have green, man, and he's leaving a bruise. Like on Cheers, Cliff, Norm, Woody, and Sam all get a bad haircut to punish themselves for bad behavior. Any bad haircut experience in or around 1990 for you?
My hair was terrible. I looked back at pictures. It wasn't pretty. I don't know I don't know if Mom was taking me somewhere, bless her heart, if it was she was doing it. I don't know, but my haircut wasn't great.
Inconsistent?
Well, it was just, I don't know. It was the times, I guess. But looking back on, it's like, what were we thinking? Just terrible.
What was it, like, long on
No,
top?
it had a little wave. It's like it was just a little bit longer on the front and had a little wave, like you comb it up.
Like the cowlick?
Kind of, I don't know, kind of looked like an ocean tide breaking to the side. It was terrible.
Is that what your school picture looked like?
Probably, yeah. No good, man. None of my school pictures were good from, second grade to freshman in high school.
Yeah.
I don't care if I see any of them again.
It's Whitley's birthday on this week's episode of A Different World. Any birthday memories from 1990-ish?
No.
You remember any of the gifts you got around this time? Like a birthday gift that you asked for that was important to you?
I was always into Star Wars, so it could have been something Star Wars related. Or, like I said, Cars or G.I. Joe, or that was my main three. G.I. Joes and Cars and Star Wars. Some of the toys we had that our parents got rid of. It's like, man, I wish I still had that one, is to either sell or just, I don't think I'd get rid of them.
On A Different World, Ron Johnson injures himself falling off of a wall. Any major injuries around this time for you? Did you break anything?
Before that, would have been a year or two before maybe, I broke my collarbone.
How?
We had a jungle gym, and the bars that you swing across, I would hang upside down from the back of my knees. Mm-hmm. I slipped off.
Broke your collarbone?
Straight down, landed on my shoulder and broke my collarbone.
Dang.
Not much memory of it. I don't know if it knocked me out or what. I don't know.
Wow.
So I remember playing, then I remember, I still have a knot on it. All these years later
That's a big one for somebody that age. Mm-hmm. Broken collarbone.
Like I said, I don't remember it. I don't have much memory of it, so I think it might have knocked me silly.
You remember like hanging there right before it happened?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Yeah.
If that's that memory. I have a memory of that. If it's that one, I don't know. So a lot of that stuff from when I was young went away. The mind's a odd thing as you get older.
Yes, it absolutely is.
You'll pull some out of the depths and be like, why do I know this? Or somebody asks you a simple question, like, I have no recollection of that.
Yeah.
And my wife still does that. She's like, I just told you that yesterday. So I'm sorry, honey, I forgot.
Yeah. On The Simpsons this week, Homer buys Marge a bowling ball for her birthday. Did you bowl in 1990? Was there even a bowling alley around at 200?
Not that I recall. We had a video game in the laundromat, and that was about it.
Do you remember what video game it was?
It was a flying game. I was just thinking about that, but I don't know what it was.
Flying game like Galaga?
Yeah, like a Galaga, just the joystick and the two buttons.
Or Centipede was kind of like not flying, but sit there and shoot
I
it.
do remember riding my bike down and playing that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So there was nothing else to do around there.
Your dad, mom, and dad, or whoever give you quarters?
Yeah, they give me some. I think eventually we got to where we had some kind of little trick to where we could, put the quarters in, and it was either spitting them back out, and we could keep playing. Something was wrong with it. Nobody knew, so we'd play for hours. So
that's awesome.
it was fun, and most of the time nobody was even in there doing laundry, so there'd be 3-4 kids in there just hanging out, playing game, and then there was a big hill that went down into the woods behind the laundromat. It was a trail because we would ride our bikes down it so much. We'd go down and shoot up and then come back up around, and we'd just do that again and again and again. There was a little creek there that we'd play in, and like I said, not much to do, tiny town. So,
how long were you there?
Would have been 3 years, 79, and then we moved to 89, and then we came up here. Came to Covington.
Have you ever ran into one of those guys again that you hung out with?
No.
Remember?
I'm friends with a few of them on Facebook.
Are you?
And caught up with them. Yeah, but
which I guess is what I meant. That's cool.
Yeah, one of the girls that we went to church with, her dad was a vet. He was a farm vet, mostly horses and cows. Mm-hmm. So we'd hang out with them a lot, and I'm friends with her and her husband, which is a friend that I would ride my bike down to, and we'd play with tractors and stuff like that.
Wow, that's cool. You got to see how that played out.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody ever set a high score? You remember, like, an instance where you guys were playing that arcade game in the laundromat and somebody...
I think we probably had them.
Had all of them?
I think, as much time as we spent doing that, I think we had all the high scores. So, I wish I could remember what that game was. I really don't know.
You think one of them would know?
I doubt it. Nick would. If anybody knew, it would be him. Maybe I'll have to reach out to him and see if he has any recollection of that whatsoever.
Let me know, because I'm curious.
I am, too. I want to get one.
At the beginning of the Wonder Years, Kevin and Winnie are getting on the school bus. Under their arms are what looks like trapper keepers and other materials. Do you remember what was on your trapper keeper or folders in the 5th grade?
If they weren't plain colors, it'd have to be cars. All things cars. To this day, I still, love the automobile, so it'd have to be cars.
Was there a car that bled out of the 80s that was in pop culture into the early 90s that was your favorite, like Kit or the A-Team van or which
Lamborghini Countach?
Yeah.
Do you have
the glass from a carnival?
I don't think I had that one. I had what was the book fairs that we had? What was that when we were that age? What was that book fair called?
I can't.
They'd set up at the school, and I was always excited. It's like, man, I got $5. I can buy whatever I want. I still remember the first book I read.
What was that called? Was it Book It or Scholastic Book Fair? I don't know, man.
It might have been Scholastic. I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, they were awesome.
That was exciting.
Super.
Because it was stuff you didn't see. It's like, man, where'd all this cool stuff come from? It was always a game to see how much money you could get out of your parents so you could buy all kinds of stuff, because you don't want to just go in there and buy one little book. You want to clean up in there.
Yeah, maybe even diversify and get an object, like an eraser.
Cool or
eraser.
The little slap bracelet or something like that. I remember they'd have those stuff.
Because again, this is the time before the internet and Walmart even. Mm-hmm. So you didn't see, like you said, you didn't see stuff like that on a regular basis. You couldn't just order a Lamborghini poster off of Amazon.
Yeah.
You said that you rode the bus to school, like Kevin and Winnie are here. Do you have any bus memories? Anything happened on the bus that was like a big deal? Somebody?
Oh, I know I'd get in trouble sometimes. I don't know what for. I remember I had to clean the bus once when I got to school. That was part of my punishment. They made me sweep the whole thing out. So I'd say I was probably throwing something, some food or who knows what.
Was there many people on your bus route?
Not a whole lot. We actually, I do have a very distinct memory from that. So in that time frame, I had a kid that would pick on me on the bus, a much older kid. Well, my sister and her friends were on the bus, and she was much older than me. So that ended really quick. My sister and her friends took care of that for me, and he didn't bother me anymore. So it was nice to have a big sister.
Oh, yeah. What was your favorite school meal? What was the best day?
Always liked the pizza. I don't know why. I think my favorite was probably the rice pudding, because nobody liked it. And I thought it was fantastic. So guess what?
Clean up.
Josh is cleaning up. It's like, you going to eat that, man? Nope. Go ahead. Bring it on over. And at one time, my mom even worked at the school in the cafeteria. So when I come through the line, it's, a little wink, wink. Hook me up, Mom. Give me a little extra.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, let's shift gears to sports. How about that?
Okay.
A large portrait of Tony La Russa was on the cover of this week's issue of Sports Illustrated with the words, "The Mastermind," over the right side of his face. Beneath that, it said, "Oakland Manager, Tony La Russa." The March 12 cover of the Sporting News magazine had a picture of Pete Rose on the top, wielding a golf club with the words, "Different Strokes." During his exile from baseball, Pete Rose is cultivating a new game. In the bottom left was a picture of Dwight Gooden with the words, "Ready to operate again. Mets pitcher Dwight Gooden wants to recapture greatness." And to the right, it said, "An unlikely pair. Guards Kenny Anderson and Bobby Hurley have been freshmen of influence in the ACC," with a picture of each beside it. Along the bottom it said, "How pro sports help their communities," and "Baseball star Hank Gathers dead at 23.
Okay.
Were you into sports at all?
A little bit. Never been, and it was one of them, growing up, my parents weren't really into it, so.
Other than going to the Cardinals?
I wasn't, other than going to St. Louis to the Cardinals Cubs, we really didn't go to games, or I wouldn't see it at home or anything like that, besides wrestling, which technically is a sport, I guess.
Back then it was.
It was. I had a huge following, so I remember watching that Sunday afternoons.
Yeah?
Laying them on beanbag and.
Religiously?
Yeah, probably.
Around
there wasn't, around that time, a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Who was your guy?
Of course, Ultimate Warrior, Legion of Doom, Hogan. Jake the Snake. I didn't care for snakes. I've never loved snakes, so I didn't care if he was wrestling or not. I didn't want to see the big boa constrictor.
I've read that he wasn't either.
Really?
Yeah. It was this gimmick they gave him, so he had to deal with it.
Ooh.
So Legions of Doom is your favorite tag team from that
Legion
era?
of Doom was definitely yeah, hands down my favorite.
They usually
Hawk
top.
and Animal. Yeah, I remember that vividly from when I was a kid.
They usually top the list of all-time greatest tag teams when I come across them. I was Demolition, the Legions of Doom knockoff. WWF's answer to WCW's Road Warriors.
That was one of our 2 or 3 channels that we had. I think it was channel 44. I don't know why I remember that, but I was the remote as a kid. I'd get up and go change the station or turn it up and down. So,
did your dad watch it with you? Watch wrestling with you?
I think he watched some of it. I think that was mostly me.
Okay.
And I believe it was on Sunday afternoon when I would watch it. But yeah, it was always the Legion of Doom. Setting the guy up on their shoulders, that was their finishing move, and they'd jump and clothesline him off. And
yeah,
that's real to a little kid.
Oh, absolutely, it was real.
Yeah.
100%. Dude, I lived and breathed. I had a harder time finding out that wasn't real than I did Santa Claus. Like, it was harder for me to accept that.
We probably should say that it is real because you might upset some people.
Correct, it is real.
It's real, Brandon.
I let my son believe that as long as I possibly could. Like, that was our thing. We went to Raw multiple times, and I never wanted him to let go of seeing it that way.
I'd forgot about. Dad took me to the American Gladiators.
Oh, no way!
Around this time, and I don't know where. It would have had to have been Indianapolis, because we had already. I'm trying to put a time frame on that. It would have been around this era somewhere. I remember watching the show on TV, and then hey, we're going to go see the real thing. It's like, oh wow, that being young, something like that, because that was something we watched all the time too. And I don't even know how long that series run, but I haven't thought about that for a while.
That's amazing. I've never met anybody that saw American Gladiators in person.
It would have had to been Indianapolis. I don't know where else it would have been, because it was just me and him. He took me.
Did you have a favorite? What were their names, like Laser and?
Yeah, it's kind of like Dodgeball, Laser, and there was one guy that was great big, and I don't remember what his name was, but he was just huge. Everybody had a hard time with him because they do the things where they'd, almost like a football run and trying to get past him, and it's like this guy. Unless you're really fast, you're not getting past this guy. He's just massive.
All right. Well, how about we take a look at print publications?
Okay.
All right. The top book every day this week was The Bourne Ultimatum by Robert Ludlum. Batman number 445 was titled When the Earth Dies, Chapter 1, Red Square, Bloody Square. The comic opens with Batman apprehending the villain, the Slasher. Commissioner Gordon becomes aware of a string of deaths in Russia at the hands of a villain called the Demon and his sidekick, KG Beast. After traveling as Bruce Wayne under the guise of a business trip, Batman eventually faces the Demon, but cannot defeat him, and he gets away. Uncanny X-Men number 259 was titled Dream a Little Dream. Colossus and Dazzler both wake up with amnesia, and while Colossus helps foil a Genosian kidnapping, Dazzler finds herself at her former boss's property, where she is taken in by her guard Guido. Moira tries to find Callisto using Cerebro and fails. Callisto is currently a prisoner of Mask. The cover of Thrasher magazine had Mark Hollander skating along the rounded top of a structure. Along the left side were the subtitles, Tokyo Trashed, Burley Boston, Texas Terrors, Johnson, Gibson, Phillips, and Upstarts, Way and Knox. The March 12th issue of Time magazine had a large red star on the right side of the cover with the words, Soviet Disunion to the left. Underneath that it said, Special Edition. Growing cries for independence bring Gorbachev's empire to the breaking point. Along the top it said, Nicaragua. Does democracy stand a chance? The cover of People magazine this week had Paula Abdul along the left side with the words, Most Wanted Woman, Paula Abdul to the right. Underneath it said, Hollywood's hottest newcomer is selling more records than Madonna and filling her dance card with movie offers. All that's missing is Mr. Right. Ask her mom, do you know anyone nice? Along the top it said, Book excerpt. Bess Meyerson's Secret Obsessions by Shane Alexander, and TV's Elvis, The Man Who Would Be King. The March 16th issue of Entertainment Weekly had a large picture of Jamie Lee Curtis dressed as a police officer and holding a gun with the words, Killer Thriller, in large letters near the bottom. Above those, it said, Jamie Lee Curtis is a rookie under fire. And beneath them, it said, Blue Still, blows away cop movie cliches. Down the left side, it said, TV, Monty Python, A Final Encore, The Phantom Glides Again, Print, Read Her Up, New Baseball Books, Music, Sinead O'Connor, Second Success, and Kids, Dr. Seuss, Good Medicine. Did you have a Nintendo in 1990?
No. I think I still have my Atari 2600.
Yeah.
I didn't have a Nintendo.
Pretty common for my guess. A lot of people still had their Ataris or ColecoVision, hadn't quite yet transitioned, but a lot of people knew somebody that had one and played it at their house.
Yes, absolutely.
That was the case with you?
Yes, friends, going to friends' house, Excite Bike and all. Oh, yeah.
Excite Bike was great.
Yeah, I definitely remember, going to, mom and dad's friend's house for dinner or something. Usually the places we go, somebody had a Nintendo or something like that, so I was always excited to go.
Did you have a skateboard in 1990?
No, I did, but I didn't do much with it. I was kind of clumsy.
Was it a generic?
Of course. Yeah, it was one of the really hard plastic ones. It was really skinny.
Oh, yeah.
And it had I hurt myself on it multiple times, and it just become a decoration. I'm like, I don't have the patience to learn this, or maybe not the capability, so I gave up on it.
Yeah, those are hard, man. Those little skinny ones are hard.
Yeah.
They had like the big round wheels on the other side that stuck out about.
Yeah, I fell on the concrete a couple times. I was like, no, I'm going to move on to something else.
Go back to the bike and ride back behind the laundromat.
It was good on a bike. The 2 wheels good. The 4 wheels, no.
Do you remember what kind of bike you had?
Oh, at that time, I don't know. Probably a Huffy or something cheap.
Yeah.
Little trick bike style.
Got pegs?
Back then, no. Fast forward, yes. Yeah, I rode a bike till I was probably 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I rode my bike everywhere. I'd go on trips, and I remember going on church trips and riding 150 miles in a week and camping out every night. And no, I rode my bike everywhere.
Speaking of that, did you guys have like church camp? Did you go to church camp?
Yeah.
In 1990?
Multiple. Yeah, and I actually I talked to my dad about that because the guy that went to the church that was a vet, we talked about earlier, he had asked me when I come back from camp how many showers I took. I said, well, we went swimming every day, so I didn't need to take a shower. So my dad thought that was funny. He remembered that, but I didn't because I come back from church camp and I hadn't showered. But I got in the pool every day, so I thought I was clean. But
well, a lot of those church camps and places like that only had cold water too, so that wasn't like real big incentive to make sure you showered every day.
Yeah, I mean back then I didn't care. I didn't stink, so I thought I was doing all right.
You probably were.
Dad was a preacher for quite a few years, so and that's what we did prior to that. He even, when I called to put a perspective on this, week that we're talking about, he actually said, hold on a minute. He said, let me go get my book out. And he actually had a log of what was going on at that time, what his sermon was that week. So even this week they were doing, he knew exactly what the sermon was.
Did he tell you what it was?
He did.
What was it?
Helping the needy. So the sermon was about helping the needy. I believe he said there was 90 people in attendance that day. And they had a talent show that evening. And raised, I believe, $800 for,
For the needy?
Yes. So, and that was this week. Yeah, I'm curious what else is in this book.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what are you doing here? But he knew. He said, just give me a minute. I was going to have him send me a picture, but I remembered it. So,
yeah, if he does.
Yeah, he's got a week by week of, what his sermon was and what it was about. And Dad always kept it interesting. I mean, he'd use props and, I remember him doing soapbox gospel when I was young, and he'd actually have a Tide detergent box and a different brand, and it was good. I do remember a Christian bookstore that we would frequent. Dad would go in there to get material, I'm sure, to use for sermons or whatever. But I do remember distinctly a book in there, and it was talking about like Dio and all the bands like that, how
AC/DC.
It's devil's music and it's all. So I see that in the church. I'm like, oh, I shouldn't listen to this music, right? And I thought, ooh, that's bad stuff. Fast forward to where I actually know some stuff. It's like, okay, yeah, maybe their stuff's a little weird, but now I listen to that old stuff that
Well, a lot of that
was
was
bad when I was a kid.
It was as gimmicky as WWF. Like, that was intentional.
Yeah.
You know, like, I know Motley Crue, I've heard them talk about that. They did that on purpose because
Yeah.
it was a marketing strategy.
Yep.
You know, and I remember, because I grew up Baptist and was so ingrained the same way you're saying, I think I said this in one of my episodes, I bought Shout at the Devil, the cassette tape, off my neighbor, and within like 10 minutes was having such overwhelming guilt over it, I smashed it to pieces.
Oh, well, when you're raised in that stuff, you don't know any better.
No,
I'm not saying not so much any better, but I mean, that's what you've been around your whole life, and that's what, your family and your friends, you're not old enough to consciously make your own decisions on anything, so.
Yeah, you're completely dependent on other people.
Well, my parents know best, so.
Any other memories from 1990 or anything from this time frame?
We did live, I was thinking about it, we lived kind of out in the country. Like I said, it was a really small town, but we were kind of like a turnaround for an Air Force base. So when they do their flights, they go out and turn around and come back. So I do remember that, because Dad was always into jets and old military aircraft and stuff like that. So going to air shows, I mean, that's something we would do. But I always remember running out of the house anytime. I mean, because they'd fly fast and low, so it'd scare you a lot of the times. But I'd always remember running outside to see if I could see them before they went down and turned around. But
they are terrifying. Like, unless you've been underneath one of those low-flying jets.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. Like daily.
I don't know about daily, but it was often. Dad would know, and I don't even know what the Air Force base was, but it wasn't. I'm sure it wouldn't be hard to find out, but I distinctly remember that around that time, because it was weird at first, but then it's like, okay, it's happening again and again. So, and Dad finally figured out, that was the flight they took when they were out practicing.
Yeah.
Right over the top of our house.
All right, Josh. Well, that's all the questions I got for you, buddy.
All right.
I appreciate you coming up, man,
yes,
hanging out with
fun.
me. Yeah, I hope I have you back in 91, 92, or 93.
Yeah, might have some more memories from then.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the 90s Week by Week. You can find links to all of our social media accounts on the90sweekbyweek.com. Feel free to leave questions, comments, and suggestions. We are always looking for ways to improve the broadcast and appreciate your feedback. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on whatever audio streaming service you use to be notified when new episodes are uploaded. If you're interested in being a guest on the 90s Week by Week, fill out the questionnaire at the bottom of the90sweekbyweek.com. Till next time.